Have you ever heard of the true story of Lilith? Could the mythical figure that fascinates both scholars and religious people have been unjustly erased from traditional biblical narratives? Few know that, hidden between the lines of ancient texts, Lilith emerges as an enigmatic and powerful character. But why was her story left aside while other biblical characters gained prominence? And what does Lilith truly represent in the history of civilizations? Today, we will dive into this untold story and uncover the biblical roots of this controversial figure. Lilith has her roots in the ancient traditions of Mesopotamia, where she was initially seen as a wind spirit or a nocturnal deity. In Sumerian myths, she wasn't considered an evil figure, but was associated with mystery and darkness. In a time of great uncertainties, Lilith symbolized the forces of nature that humans could neither control nor predict. Her connection to the supernatural made her feared, but also respected as part of the balance between the known and the unknown. When this figure was adopted into Hebrew traditions, her image began to change. Lilith transitioned from being an entity connected to nature to a figure associated with disorder and danger. In ancient Jewish literature, especially in texts like the Talmud and Midrash, Lilith was transformed into a spirit that threatened households, particularly newborns and pregnant women. This shift reflects a growing cultural fear of forces beyond human control, especially when these forces were personified in a female figure. This transformation of Lilith into a negative figure also reveals much about the anxieties of the patriarchal societies of the time. Lilith, being a powerful female entity, represented what these cultures feared: a woman who did not conform to established norms. Thus, over the centuries, her story was reinterpreted and adapted to serve the fears and concerns of each society. This process of demonization was a clear reflection of the desire to control feminine forces, seen as a threat to male order. Even so, Lilith maintained her connection to the night and mystery, carrying with her the symbolism of a woman who transgressed the boundaries of what was acceptable. Her presence in the Hebrew tradition also reveals a constant tension between submission and autonomy, a struggle that would resonate for centuries. In this way, her original story in Sumerian myths sheds light on the origin of a complex figure whose evolution was shaped by cultural needs and fears over time. Lilith's story as Adam's first wife has its roots in non-canonical Jewish texts, such as the alphabet of Ben-Sira. In this version of creation, Lilith was made from the same dust as Adam, which gave her a position of equality with him. Unlike Eve, who was created from Adam's rib, Lilith believed that she should have the same rights and power. This desire for equality put her at odds with Adam, who expected submission from his companion. The breaking point between Lilith and Adam occurred when she refused to submit to him, especially in terms of power within the relationship. Lilith wanted to have a voice and make decisions for herself, but Adam was unwilling to accept this division of power. As a result, Lilith chose to leave the Garden of Eden, fleeing to ensure her freedom, even if it meant exile. This act of rebellion, choosing autonomy over forced coexistence, made Lilith a figure of resistance. This alternative narrative to the creation of Eve raises profound questions about the role of women in biblical stories. Lilith, by refusing to conform to the standards of submission, was removed from the main story and replaced by Eve, who accepted a submissive role. Lilith's story, therefore, becomes a powerful symbol of female independence, showing that her refusal to be controlled came at a price. She was demonized and relegated to a marginal figure. In later rabbinic tradition, this view of Lilith as a rebellious woman was expanded, and she came to be described as a demon who tormented women and children. Her figure, initially strong and autonomous, was shaped to fit the patriarchal norms that viewed her insubordination as dangerous. However, the fact that her story survived and continued to resonate over time shows the strength of her figure as a symbol of resistance. In the medieval period, Lilith's figure took on an even darker and more sinister role. During this time, she was portrayed as a demonic figure in various Jewish and Christian traditions. Rabbinic texts and popular writings from the Middle Ages describe her as an evil spirit who attacked pregnant women and newborns, perpetuating the idea that Lilith was a threat to life and domestic order. Her image was associated with chaos and death, reinforcing the fear that societies had of female independence. In European folklore, Lilith was also linked to the concept of witchcraft. She was transformed into a nocturnal figure who seduced men, stole their vital energies, and terrorized homes. Popular legends connected her with vampirism and other dark creatures, further amplifying her aura of mystery and danger. This image of Lilith as a demonic seductress reflected the fear of medieval societies toward female sexuality and the autonomy it represented. The demonization of Lilith can also be seen as an attempt to control women at a time when the church and the feudal system reinforced rigid patriarchal norms. Lilith, with her insubordination and connection to sexual power, represented a threat to the established order. By turning her into an evil figure, medieval societies sought to suppress any trace of female rebellion, especially related to sexuality and control over one's body. Nevertheless, no matter how much they tried to paint her as a figure of fear, Lilith remained a symbol of power. Her presence in medieval folklore reflects not only the anxieties of the time but also the persistence of her image as a force that could not be completely controlled. Even as a villain, Lilith represented the side of women who dared to question and challenge established norms, becoming, in a way, a hidden icon of resistance. In Jewish mysticism, Lilith took on an even more complex role, especially within Kabbalistic tradition. In Kabbalah, she is seen as the consort of Samael, the prince of demons, forming a couple that represents the dark side of creation. Lilith is portrayed as a figure balancing the dark energies of the universe, acting as an unredeemed feminine force. Her figure in Kabbalah symbolizes the tension between control and rebellion, a recurring theme in her story. In this mystical tradition, Lilith is often described as the mother of demons, responsible for generating evil forces that threaten order. However, at the same time, she is also seen as a figure of great spiritual power. For Kabbalistic scholars, Lilith embodies the feminine energy that, when uncontrolled or improperly channeled, can become destructive. This interpretation reflects a deep fear of female power but also a fascination with its capabilities. Moreover, Kabbalah offers a unique perspective on the possible redemption of Lilith. Some Kabbalistic traditions suggest that Lilith's energy can be redeemed and transformed into a positive force. This reflects an attempt at reconciliation with feminine power within a predominantly patriarchal spiritual structure. Lilith, therefore, is not just a symbol of disorder, but also a figure that could be reintegrated into the universal balance if her energy were controlled and directed. This duality makes Lilith an intriguing figure in Kabbalah, where she is not just a villain but a necessary part of spiritual balance. Her role as Samael's consort and mother of demons emphasizes her connection to the dark side of creation but also her importance within the mystical universe. Lilith represents both the fear and respect for the power she embodies, and her story in Kabbalah highlights how the feminine was treated as a force to be tamed and controlled. In the 20th and 21st centuries, Lilith's figure underwent significant reinterpretation. What was once seen as insubordination and evil was reinterpreted as an expression of strength and independence. Lilith became adopted as a symbol of female empowerment, especially by feminist movements, which saw in her story a metaphor for the struggle for gender equality and autonomy. Her act of refusing to submit to Adam was reinterpreted as a courageous choice for freedom rather than as sin or rebellion without cause. In contemporary art, Lilith has become a muse, appearing in various forms of expression. She gained prominence in films, TV series, books, and even comics, being portrayed as a complex and often misunderstood character. In productions like Supernatural and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Lilith is presented as a strong and strategic figure, challenging the demon-like villainy associated with her in the past. This modern representation celebrates her autonomy and power, highlighting her role as a force that challenges traditional norms. Furthermore, her image has been incorporated into modern spiritual movements, especially those focused on reconnecting with pagan or alternative traditions. Lilith has come to be seen as a symbol of sexual and spiritual freedom, representing women's right to own their bodies and choose their destinies. She is invoked in rituals that celebrate female independence and the rejection of patriarchal norms that restrict individual freedom. Thus, Lilith transcended her religious origins to become a contemporary cultural icon. Her image has been reinterpreted as a symbol of power, resistance, and freedom. The transformation of Lilith over the centuries shows how mythological figures can be reinterpreted to meet the needs and aspirations of modern societies, becoming relevant archetypes for new contexts. Lilith's story, despite its roots in ancient texts, continues to resonate strongly in contemporary debates. The legacy Lilith leaves goes beyond being a simple demonic figure or a forgotten myth. She has transformed into a symbol of resistance, autonomy, and female strength in times when the struggle for equality and freedom is more present than ever. Her refusal to submit to Adam and her choice of freedom, even at the cost of exile, echoes in the current fights for women's rights and the quest for personal autonomy. In a world where discussions about gender equality, female power, and sexual rights are gaining more and more space, Lilith emerges as an icon of empowerment. She represents the women who, throughout history, were marginalized for not accepting subordinate roles or for challenging the status quo. Her story makes us reflect on the cost of freedom in a world that has historically imposed severe restrictions on women's choices. Lilith is a reminder that the fight for equality often requires courage to face the consequences of rebellion. Moreover, Lilith teaches us the importance of reevaluating traditional narratives and rethinking the roles we are assigned. The fact that her story was erased from canonical narratives or distorted to portray her as a villain shows how powerful figures who challenge order are often suppressed or reinterpreted to serve the interests of those in power. However, Lilith survived attempts at erasure and was reimagined under a new light, reflecting the capacity of stories to evolve as societies change. Finally, Lilith offers a valuable lesson about the power of independence and the importance of forging your own path, even if it means facing the unknown. Her decision to leave Eden in search of personal freedom, without guarantees of what she would find, reflects the bravery needed to choose authenticity over conformity. In a world that often pressures people to conform to rigid norms, Lilith reminds us that the price of freedom may be high, but it is fundamental to staying true to oneself. As we continue to reflect on Lilith's figure in modern society, it becomes clear that her story is far from over. She continues to inspire, challenge, and provoke deep reflections on autonomy, equality, and the role of women in today's world. Lilith's legacy remains alive, not as a warning about the dangers of rebellion, but as an example of resistance and perseverance in a continuous struggle for justice and freedom. Lilith's journey, from her ancient origins to her resurrection in modern culture, shows how stories can be rewritten. What was once seen as sin is now celebrated as freedom. Lilith reminds us that narratives change over time and that we can find new meanings in old myths. If this story has given you new insights, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and activate notifications so you don't miss more inspiring content. Lilith is a figure that provokes thought, heroine or villain? Leave your thoughts in the comments about this enigmatic figure. See you next time.